Okay, the time is 4 o'clock. I will call the Plan Commission meeting to order Tuesday, September 26th, 4 p.m. City Hall. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Highfield,
Here.
Commissioner Kesnick. Here. Commissioner Shull. Council Representative Schultz.
Here.
Engineer Selly
Here.
and Manager Houseman.
Here. Okay, next is the review and possible action relating to the minutes of the September 12th, 2023 regular Plan Commission meeting.
I move approval of the September 22nd or September 12th Planning Commission meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I heard Diana. Okay, excellent. That motion carries. Number 4 is presentation, review, and possible recommendation to the City Council relating to park impact fees and proposed amendments to the City of Fort Atkinson Land Division and Development Ordinance, Section 70.0403 and 70.0404.
Can we bring up that point?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, we have our Parks and Recreation Director, Brooke Francine, here to present.
Do you have the clicker or do you
I
want?
can see, yeah.
Oh, perfect. See if I can manage this one. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Brooke Francine, the Parks and Recreation Director. We're going to jump right into the presentation. If you're at the workshop, you've been through this before, so bear with me a little bit here. So we completed our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, otherwise known as CORP, earlier this year, and the plan had recommended revisions to the Land Division and Development Ordinance regarding impact fees. The city hired Vanderwall and Associates in April to serve as the city's park impact fee analysis consultant. Between then and now, staff have worked with Ben on a number of iterations with keeping the impact on housing costs in mind. So in 2017, the state statutes made a change where the impact fees now require an analysis component, which is a basis of why we are imposing the fee, the ordinance, which is the policy related to that, and the process of the steps getting from A to Z in terms of meeting the statutory requirements. Park impact fees are only imposed on new residential development to support additional parkland itself and the development of that park associated with the increased demand of those new residents. So there are 3 different types. First is parkland dedication, which is the amount of land set aside for new park development, or fee in lieu of land dedication, meaning we don't get the physical land space per unit, but instead we would get an amount of money per unit to acquire land for new park space that might be part of that new development or adjacent to it, or another area within the community that Plan Commission or City Council would see fit. And then there's park improvement fees, which is the amount of money per unit to develop and improve said physical space into a developed park, meaning infrastructure, playground, structures, landscaping, benches that make it a functional and usable park space. And then to mention, these fees are only used for new parks and facilities, and that statute requires that they be spent within 8 years of collection. So what do we have now? We have parkland dedication and fee in lieu of parkland dedication. We currently do not have an improvement fee. Right now, the parkland dedication has single family and 2 family of $1,000 square foot per unit, multifamily of $750 square foot per unit, and commercial and industrial is 4% of total land value. The fee in lieu of land dedication is either $1,600 per unit or 8% of raw land value. And as you can see, proportionally right now, what we have is an adjusted amount from single family and 2 family versus multifamily in terms of parkland dedication. And what that is truly reflective of is the number of persons per household. So when we think about single or 2 family unit, It's usually a larger household associated with a larger demand for parks and recreation space, whereas a multifamily unit is typically a smaller in physical size and the associated amount of individuals living in the unit itself. The purpose of the draft needs assessment is to provide an analysis and justification for where we land on proposing that set fee amount. The required components of the facilities assessment that is done as part of the CORP. The impact fee standards, which is your analysis and calculations of how we got from A to Z. And the ordinance, which is the policy for which we need to align for continuity for the needs assessment. And then there's an administrative accounting component as well. And the key factor for a needs assessment is to set the maximum amount that the totals could be imposed based on the analysis. So the city cannot exceed the max amount, but could reduce the maximum amount. And that's what we've done in the document that you have in your packet labeled recommended fees. So within the needs assessment, we've identified a maximum and a recommended, as I just mentioned. So some key components, single family and two family have one set of standards, and proportionally multifamily has 75% of those standards reflective of how the city imposes those today. Then we've also added an additional component for senior residential, which is defined as those units dedicated to those individuals 55 or older. What we have proposed to do within the needs assessment is to remove the commercial and industrial component, because when we reviewed surrounding communities, we found that none of them impose such a fee on commercial and industrial property. And when you think about it, the direct correlation of demand is easy to justify based on residential units, but it's more convoluted based on what the commercial property is really yielding for space or amenities. So we're recommending to remove that for these fees moving forward. So this slide is the recommended fees. We have the same breakdown. What the key difference is the amount of the improvement fee. So that's been calculated, and then we'll get into that in the next couple of slides, what the difference is. What? Uh-oh. Here we go. So the maximum calculation includes the parkland dedication and fee in lieu based on population household projections, and the CORP's recommendation for the amount of park space we're going to need for the next 5, 10, 20 years. It also includes a development of a new neighborhood and a community park in terms of looking at the total cost that would be needed and the amount of land to be needed. And there is also a larger number of facilities included in each park as a model metric to look at. We've worked over the past couple of months in looking at other city adopted plans and reflecting what those are within the recommended calculations. So what we've done is carried over the recommended dedication and fee in lieu. However, we did change what creates the park impact fee cost analysis, and this is in relationship for planning for only one new neighborhood park with facilities to reflect the Banker Road neighborhood plan in particular that's coming down the pipeline in the near future, that we'd like to provide monies available to have for the development of that park space and facilities within it. If you're familiar with the CORP and you're wondering why these fees are slightly different or different than the existing fees, and looking at how the existing fees were calculated, we do not have a defined methodology at how we arrived to where to what we are imposing today. So as mentioned in 2017, the state statute change required the analysis to be a component in imposing those fees. So we don't know exactly how they came about, but we want to abide by that with this opportunity. So we reflected the Banker Road neighborhood plan's intended improvements within the CORP's recommendations. We also updated the projections. So within the CORP, they used the projections based on Wisconsin DOA numbers, and they were a bit outdated. So Vanderwall updated those numbers to be reflective of projections that account for the last 3 decades in terms of patterns of growth to project the future growth for the next 5 to 10 years. We added a breakdown of different unit types, removed commercial and industrial standard, and used a slightly different methodology as mentioned than the CORP. So we use the existing fees and the analysis from the corp as a baseline to understand everything. Then we tried to take and fine tune and customize that to reflect the balance we wanted to strike in terms of not only providing new opportunities in the city, reflecting the competitiveness of the city, and reflecting the best data we have available for cost for projections. So when we're talking about what are the potential impacts of the fees and potential outcomes of the balance, we're trying to strike any type of any kind of impact fee is going to make the development of new housing more expensive. Any kind of new fee is going to cost more to develop a new housing unit within the city. However, as the city grows, what this money does is it makes it available for land to develop new parkland and for money available to provide the opportunity to develop that new park space to meet demand, continue to enhance quality of life, retain residents, bring in new residents, all those things that we pride ourselves in terms of having those longtime residents who really value the high quality of life here that we have. So what we're trying to do is strike the balance in providing that long term as the city continues to grow. So what we've done with the recommended calculations is really try to balance and attempt to account for both pros and cons. So we've had quite the process with this so far. We've had a workshop on September 5th with members from City Council, Parks and Rec Advisory Board, some members from Plan Commission, Economic Development Commission. A lot of great questions were asked at that workshop, and a form was filled out, which revealed unanimous support from all participants for the recommended park impact fees. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board met on September 13th and recommended those recommended park impact fees as well during their meeting. So what we're looking for today is a recommendation to City Council from Plan Commission relating to park impact fees and the changes in the Land Division Code. And then after today, there are additional public meetings to gather additional input from the public and City Council, as you see on the screen. And with all of that information, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions about the process or the schedule or the impact fees from the Plan Commission?
Brooke, do you have a current balance in this development fund that has been contributed by previous developers? Or is it all used, all been used up at the present time?
Nope, there's about 6,000 in that balance right now.
And can it only be used for new park development, or can it be used on existing parks?
It can be used on existing parks. The fees, it's recommended to use in that area of where they were acquired, but you can use it at existing parks.
Has the history generally been to use it where the development fees came from or where we have parks?
It's all over the board with the history there, I would say. To my knowledge, I'm not sure where the expenses come in correlation to where there was new housing in the past.
Okay,
To be able to
thank
answer
you.
that
I will
directly.
also note that the fees that we've collected up to this point have just been payments in lieu of land dedication, because we didn't have improvement impact fees up
That's right.
until this
Okay.
point. So it really was
So you're
just,
going to generate more money now with the new fee structure than we are generating currently with the old one. 'Cause you're now
so I
gonna
think
have-
it's different fees, right? So right now it's $1,600 per unit in a payment in lieu of land
Right.
dedication.
So now
so
it's going to
what
be
we're-
less for that, but more for something else.
Right. And so it's not just land dedication, it's land dedication. It's either land dedication or a payment in lieu of that land dedication. And then also impact fees to create improvements on that land. So if you want to pull up, you want to scroll back to the recommended ones, just
Boy.
to give us some,
How do I go back?
I think you can just use the wheel, go backwards on the wheel.
The recommended fees, you said?
Yeah, so single and two family improvement fee is 1,009, and fee in lieu of land dedication $741. So that would be a total of $1,750 versus the $1,600 right now. So it is
Okay, so
slightly
about
higher.
150
for-
bucks on a single family.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Are our existing biking / walking trails included in the existing acreage or square footage of existing parkland?
Just thinking back to the corp of what all was included in there. I do not believe so in the existing park acreage that we have.
Could they be in the future?
They absolutely could be, yeah.
So the bike trail, I'm not the bike trail, but the river walk isn't included as parkland.
Not in our corp, it's not.
So right now, if you were going to do some improvements on the river walk under the bridge, for example, on Main Street, you couldn't use funds from this source for that because it isn't included as parkland.
I mean, I don't think we would be using those funds anyway for that. So if we're collecting for new, let's say it's a new subdivision that goes in. And this needs assessment is really based on the one neighborhood park that we propose to construct in the Baker Road. Yeah, in the Baker Road area. So we would collect fees from building permits in that area in order to create that park. And that's why I think it's important to note that the recommended fees are lower than the maximum fees because we adjusted what we planned to build in the future, in the next 10 years, because these will be reviewed. So the corp has to be reviewed every 5 years. And we had talked about at the workshop, reviewing the impact fees every 5 years along with the corp, because then we can say, okay, our future plans have changed a little bit, or there's another opportunity for another larger development over on this side of the city. And we will do a community park in that area. So then we've got some flexibility as to how we put these together into the future.
Okay.
Any other questions from the Plan Commission? Is there anybody on the Zoom that has any questions for Brooke or staff about this, the impact fees or the needs assessment?
But go ahead.
Oh, I don't, no.
Okay, just one of the comments or questions, I guess. So we're excluding the commercial industrial lots primarily because residential homes and people who live in them are most likely to use the parks that this program is kind of aimed at. To me, this does kind of sound like we're creating, one is we're allocating the cost to the people who are actually using it, and possibly making it a little bit more attractive for businesses to move into town. Do you slightly agree with that, or?
I mean,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think economic development in general is driven now by quality of life and residents and people being attracted to a community and workers, right? So we're in a worker shortage, we're in a housing shortage. Some of those things, at least one of those things has to change in order to come up with solutions to some of that stuff. So I agree with you, Eric, that businesses do in general benefit from higher quality of life and higher recreational and park opportunities within a community.
Gotcha. And I guess like the cost possibly for a future commercial or industrial development, like maybe the land dedication or fee in lieu of land dedication is probably a little bit marginal to make us more attractive for businesses to move to town, but it is a slight cost reduction for new businesses moving to town, I guess, in my opinion.
Yes, I would agree with that.
If there's no further questions, I would move to recommend to the City Council approve the park impact fees and proposed amendments to the City of Fort Atkinson Land Division and Development Ordinance, sections 70.04, 0.03, and 70.04, 0.04.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to recommend council approval. Commissioner Shull, did you have questions or anything? I think you were trying to talk before. I can't see the people on the Zoom, so.
No, that's fine. I was saying I did not have any questions at this time. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. Motion and a second on the floor. Any final questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, item number 5 is a public hearing relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the properties located at 932 Eric Street, 1000 Eric Street, and 610 Talcott Avenue from light industrial LI to institutional I zoning classifications to accommodate the proposed Public Works and Parks Operations Facility. I think Engineer Selly, do you want to present the staff report before we open the public hearing, just to provide some context and information to the public before we have that portion?
Sure can.
Thank you.
So the area that we're talking about is the current DPW facility is shown here, the fireside, which we all know is kind of the local landmark, is to the south or the lower part of this photo. Our current facility is composed of what is the parks garage, the actual mechanics garage and kind of staffing area, and then a large truck shed that we call it, where we keep the majority of the snow plows and things like that. The plan that we're moving forward with is to expand on this campus and build a new DPW facility. The numbered parcels that you see there, 1, 2, and 3, have been acquired by the city from NASCO. Those 3 parcels are currently zoned light industrial. And the light industrial zoning, of course, is not conducive to the expansion of our DPW facility, which is in the institutional zoning within the city. As many of you know, the zoning dictates what can and cannot be used on the site. And so it's important to make sure that the institutional zoning that would accommodate the DPW expansion in that area is correctly applied to these 3 parcels. So the process for this is to go through the zoning map amendment. That process requires a Class 3 notice. So 3 weeks prior to this upcoming meeting at the City Council, there was a notice put in the paper regarding the requested zoning map change. There were letters sent out to adjacent property owners, some of which I assume received those and are here and may have some questions about the project. And that is the public noticing side of things. This is the public hearing that is required with the zoning map amendment, where the public is invited to come and ask questions and gain some more information about the project. The next steps for this, assuming that the Planning Commission is recommending that the City Council take up the matter, would be 3 readings at the City Council meetings, the first of which begins on October the 3rd. To allow for plenty of public review. Generally speaking, if we don't see much in the way of public feedback at the second reading, we will also oftentimes ask to suspend the rules, forego the 3rd reading, and at that second meeting or second reading at the City Council, go ahead and adopt the zoning map amendment. So that's the process that we're dealing with here. This project in particular has 4 different approvals, all of which will come before the Planning Commission. So in addition to this zoning map amendment, which is the first approval, we will have a CSM that will come before the Planning Commission in a future meeting that will be combining all of these lots into a single lot. Today, we will hear the preliminary request for a discontinuance of the James Place right-of-way, also known as a street vacation. That's the blue box that you see there at the bottom. Planning Commission will just be informed of that and free to ask questions, but there'll be no recommendation from Planning Commission associated with that. And then the 4th approval that is required is the site plan review. So just as we have entertained a number of different site plans from our commercial, and that is a conditional use permit. Yeah. the site plan review is a conditional use permit. So as we have entertained that this body has from a number of other organizations here in the city, we will do the same. So we'll compare that to the zoning code and move ahead with the various approvals associated with that. So we'll be seeing this project a few different times here in front of Planning Commission and City Council. With that, I guess we would open up the public hearing formally. If there's anybody in the audience or online that has any questions related to this, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. Is there anybody here wishing to speak? Second call for, oh, can you come up to the podium, please, and state your name and address for the record?
My name is Justin Hack. I live at 933 Eric Street. What is the reasoning for the vacation of the Jamesway portion there?
The James Place area along this section here is not, we don't have the space to be able to expand on the site without accommodating that. So what we're going to do, if you stick around for the next one, I've got a figure, an illustration of what the proposed plan looks like. But there'll be a gate placed over here. The Quonset hut will be removed and the salt storage shed will be moved to this kind of the south boundary in here. And then the main point of ingress and egress will come off of Eric Street. But without taking the James Place vacation, we're unable to fit everything on the site that we need to.
Okay, and so you guys do have a plan for the layout of the buildings and stuff that's going to be in the next portion?
We do. I'll show, if you're sticking around for the meeting, I can show you. If you can't stick around, by all means, just give me a call or send me an email. I can send you a copy of it.
All right, thank you.
Second call for anybody wishing to speak in the public hearing. Third and final call for anybody on Zoom or in person wishing to speak for this public hearing. Okay, the public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is review and possible recommendation to the City Council relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the properties located at 932 Eric, 1000 Eric Street and 610 Talcott from light industrial to institutional. Engineer Selly has already presented the staff report, which is in your packet, as well as the exhibits. Are there any questions from the Plan Commission on this matter?
I move to recommend the city council approve the zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the properties located at 932 Eric Street, 1000 Eric Street and 610 Talcott Avenue from light industrial to institutional.
Commissioner Gray, do you mind including the
recommendations?
conditions? Yes,
Three conditions.
the three conditions.
The three conditions, let's see.
I can read them for you if you'd like.
Why don't you do that?
The three conditions are that the city council approves the James Place right-of-way discontinuance. The second is that the city council approve the certified survey map combining all the parcels. And the third is that this body, the Plan Commission, approves the conditional use permit for the large-scale public service and utilities use of the subject property. That is the site plan approval that I mentioned earlier.
I guess what I would have an exception to that is we haven't really discussed the James Place right-of-way discontinuance at this point, and I don't think it would be appropriate to include that as part of the motion.
Yeah, that certainly can be stricken. The city council is the body that approves that, so
Right.
not having it as part of this is fine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like we need to see a new site plan.
Sure.
Before we can make a judgment on the vacation of James Place. Is that what it's called?
James Place, yeah.
Yeah.
It just so happens we have one coming up, so we'll be able to attend to
Okay.
that here.
So that exception, I would accept the adjustments.
So with conditions 2 and 3.
Right.
Approval of the certified survey map and Plan Commission approval of the conditional use permit, which will come back before this body. Really, the reason for those conditions is just that if this zoning map amendment does move through the process, but those other pieces aren't done, the project won't move forward as a whole. And then we could revert back to previous zoning and figure out something else to do with the property. So that being said, we have a motion from Commissioner Gray on the floor to recommend council approval of the zoning map amendment, subject to council approval of the certified survey map and Plan Commission approval of the conditional use permit. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you, Commissioner Highfield. Any further questions or comments from the Plan Commission on this matter? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item number 7, review and possible recommendation to the City Council relating to a request to discontinue a portion of James Place between Talcott Street and Janesville Avenue to accommodate the construction of the proposed Public Works and Parks Operations Facility. Engineer Selly.
Thank you. So this is an aerial photo of the area. I want you to kind of key in on this area in yellow. This is the vacated area that we're going to talk about. Again, the fireside is here kind of in the corner. The Parks garage is here along James Place, and then the city mechanics garage and staffing area is this building, and then the large truck shed is out here. These are going to show up in the next, well, they may show up as an outline in the next view. So I want you to kind of orient yourselves as we go to this next one, which is a layout of the proposed new facility. So in here, again, in pink, that is the yellow that I'd referenced before. The existing Parks garage area is located right here. Eric Street is kind of off to the side here on the right, and then Talcott Street comes around to the lower right-hand section. The homes that are exist along Talcott Street are drawn in here as well. So as I said, the vacation of James Place is necessary for us to be able to continue to grow on this site. The building, the new building itself is, Tom, am I hitting this at 70,000 square foot facility? Roughly. We are preserving the existing Parks garage. That's going to, that building is in very good shape, frankly, and we're going to give it a little bit of a facelift and utilize that for storage. The salt shed will be relocated to the south of the parcel, and then dry storage of materials and things like that will be located along that section as well. Employee parking and citizen parking will be over here near the entrance to the facility. And then the main point of egress, one way out, will come on to Eric Street over here. And the main point of ingress, there's 2 points. One is a gated section here in James Place. And the other is a gated section here just off of Talcott Street. Those are the main elements. And as I said, I would consider this to be better than 90% in terms of confidence of the layout that we have here. We're moving ahead with this and focusing more on the interior at this point. The vacation process that we have is in state statute. The vacation can be asked for by the adjacent property owners. So we reached out to Fireside, NASCO, and of course the city is the third adjacent property owner through the area. We've been talking with them for about a year about this project and the potential to vacate that it would have on their operations. NASCO has a loading dock in this area, which is not drawn in, but is generally in this vicinity here. We made sure that we have an easement in place for them to always have access to that loading dock, regardless of whether this vacation moves forward or not. And then the Fireside had will have some changes. The entrance that they have in this general vicinity will be closed off. And no longer have access to their parking area from that location. They were actually happy to hear that because they have some challenges with folks cutting through the parking lot in order to get to the south. And so we're happy to see that addition. They actually asked if they could be in charge of performing maintenance of that green space, frankly, to kind of add to their landscaping that they have in the area. So in general, all positive comments. I think we've been able to accommodate the needs of those adjacent landowners within the area. Again, the process for this, we've moved through the public notices for this. The city council will consider this at their October the 3rd meeting. This is simply for the benefit of the planning commission here to ask questions and to have any dialogue that is necessary, but there's no,
We are asking for a recommendation from the planning commission.
okay. We will, I guess, ask for a recommendation then from the planning commission for this particular item.
Can I assume that the city land already goes across James Place to back up onto the Fireside land, and that the current James Place street operates on a right-of-way grant to the city, or how is that?
James Place is a city right of way. So it is, I think it's 66 feet wide. The city does own property on both sides of James Way. So where the Quonset hut is located,
Right.
that is a city parcel there. We actually own the area kind of behind the Firesides building as well. We've leased that parking area out to the Fireside for their use in the past.
Okay.
But yeah, we have a parcel on either side of James Way or James Place.
Engineer Sally, can you speak a little bit to, you can't see where the driveways and the homes are aligned on the other side of Eric Street, but can you speak a little bit to the thought process as to where we put that driveway?
Yeah, we did consider that in the design. We might be able to see it here a little bit better. The alignment of the exit onto Eric Street is specifically deliberate to focus any headlights that may be going across Eric Street into this area here where there is no house, or wouldn't be shining into someone's house. So that was a significant consideration in the design of that exit point. I should note too, the area along Eric Street is going to become green space. So we're going to manage our stormwater within that particular location. So that should it should add a little bit of an aesthetic improvement up in this area to the current situation there on Eric Street.
So the large box that I see up there is what you would envision this new building to, those are the dimensions of the new building?
Correct.
I don't see, or I can't read the code for this map or the key. I'm assuming the gray diagonal lined areas are pavement. Is that correct?
Yes, the grayed out areas
Okay.
are hard surfaces.
All right. And then there looks to be a sidewalk along Talcott. Is that a new sidewalk or existing, or some of each?
That is a new sidewalk. There's
Okay.
currently no sidewalk in that area.
Okay. And that ends just to the south of the vacated James Place? Is that-
Correct. Yeah, it runs the entire length of the property that we own.
Okay.
It stops short on Eric Street there to kind of the north, and then they're on Talcott as well to the south.
Okay, so it stops at the edge of the city property.
Correct.
And then beyond that, it's Fireside property?
It's all right of way. So yes, it runs adjacent to the
Adjacent,
Fireside
but-
property, but it is within the city right of way.
And you said the what will be left of James Place will be basically a dead end street that turns into a driveway into the Public Works parking lot? Is that-
Correct. There'll be a gate across the road that will be secure entry to the Public Works facility. And then the access to NASCO's loading docks will be preserved. So it'll basically be a dead end right of way of James Place.
Okay. But this, right now, we're really just discussing the discontinuation of James Place. We're not approving the entire site plan.
Correct. Yeah. So, when we get to talking about pedestrian access through the area, landscaping, what the building aesthetics will be, elevation drawings, and those things will come forward through that conditional use site plan review process. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission about the proposed discontinuance of this section of James Place?
I move to recommend the city council approve the request to discontinue a portion of James Place between Talcott Street and Janesville Avenue to accommodate the construction of the proposed Public Works and Parks Operations Facility.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any final questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. As Engineer Sally mentioned, it will be on the City Council agenda on October 3rd. Item number 8 is review and possible recommendation to the City Council relating to a certified survey map dedicating a 75-foot wide right-of-way to the city for future public infrastructure purposes. This is certified survey map 2023-12.
Thank you. So some more photos. The one that you have here on the screen, the high school campus is on the left side of the photo. This body may recall the CSM that was approved for the Trillium development that removed, I believe it was about a 10 or 11 acre parcel and preserved the right of way shown in pink. That came before us. I think that was in June or around that time. And was approved by Planning Commission as well as City Council. We visited with the Fort Atkinson School District in August. We already had an easement within this area bounded by the yellow box to install utilities, of course, to get up through to serve the Banker Road land that the city had acquired. And as we continued to kind of work through the evolution of this area, it became apparent that a public access in this area would be appropriate. So we asked the school board at their meeting in August if they had any concerns about that. They did not. They had a lot of very good questions about it, but were very much open to creating a road in there, and frankly, very interested in increasing some of the pedestrian facilities that are lacking in the area as well through that right of way. So this next step then is here with the Planning Commission to approve the dedication through CSM of that 75-foot corridor that you see there. We will take it pending approval here to City Council, and then Attorney Westrick, I'm sure, will be able to draw up whatever necessary instruments are needed to transfer the ownership of that to the city. We did have a discussion with the school district about the care and maintenance of this. It will remain cared for and maintained by the school district until such time as the city actually begins building and installing utilities and roads and things like that in there.
So the area that we're looking at is actually the yellow box.
Correct. The yellow
The
box.
purple box already exists.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so eventually the city proposes to become a public street, what is now Campus Drive. No, Campus Drive runs along the bottom.
Yep. Campus Drive. is
So
done.
the road that now accesses the school becomes a public street.
You got it.
Okay.
And it would, when it is constructed, it would include public infrastructure, utilities, sidewalks, streetlights, et cetera. And it would also be two-way. So but it will remain a private driveway and one way until such time that we would improve it.
How far in the future do you think that is?
That is a great question. The soonest we would construct this would probably be next year. I think that the more likely result would probably be 2 years out.
So right now, that driveway that you go into the school on runs around and goes around behind the building and goes past the football field. The school district is then going to figure out some way to work with what the city is going to do with the street there so that they actually have access to the school property.
Yeah, we've looked at that with them. So they'll maintain, essentially what this will be is a road with two turnoffs, right? So there'll be a turnoff to enter the front of the high school here, and then there'll be a turnoff to go through the back side of the high school. We have had discussions on a number of items associated with the high school and, sort of a larger regional area here. Some of those have been, how does this particular intersection function? We did a traffic review or traffic impact analysis on that. One of the recommendations was for a small not a turnabout, a roundabout, thank you. In the area. Those are incredibly efficient and would frankly meet the needs of the really high volumes that we have at very short periods of time during the day. On the other side, there was discussion of potentially the high school side, I should say, there was discussion by the high school of looking at making this two-way. The existing street width in there would accommodate that. And we've also talked about the extension of Rena Avenue, which Planning Commission may recall from a few years back, we had mapped in our official map that would enter into the high school campus as well. So the plan, I think, or discussions are certainly occurring, and I think a number of options are being evaluated. Most of this area will remain relatively easily accessed, I think, even with the development that we're proposing here with the Trillium. The big change that could come in the future is if the school district ever decides to relocate a middle school on the site. That will be the point at which we'll want to pay very special attention to all the options that we've been discussing about access to the high school campus.
Is the area that's in pink anticipated to be Trillium Drive?
It is currently, yes. I think this section here will be Banker Road. If you recall, Banker Road is going to be
Right, it's gonna
rerouted.
move, yeah.
But this short section here is.
So that will connect with the end of the street that you're proposing now.
That's correct. I can show you the CSM if that, it's not quite as vivid, but might be a little more clear as to what's being proposed here. Well, that's the official look of it, I suppose. Where Trillium Drive comes in,
Okay.
and this would be a 75-foot right of way, and there's an 80-foot right of way there.
So it's potentially possible that the new street that the city would build could extend beyond the what would be the western limit of what's there proposed now?
Northern,
Back toward the high school, is that what you're saying?
No, straight ahead, up.
Straight north? I
North.
don't think so.
North.
Topography gets pretty challenging in there. We run into some wetlands that are in the area and some stormwater detention in the area. So
Okay.
anything is possible, certainly, as any engineer will tell you. But I don't think it's a problem.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from the Plan Commission on this matter?
I move to recommend the city council approve the certified survey map dedicating a 75-foot wide right-of-way to the city for future public infrastructure purposes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any final questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item number 9 is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned at 4:48 PM. Thank you all.